I did not.
I can see the comments from my end too.
Welcome to our regular meeting of council in person and live streamed electronically for Tuesday, November 5th. For opening of our meeting, reminders that on November 6th, that is our 4-H Club Recognition Day. November 16th is the MRCC Christmas Market at Rosedale Hall. November 24th is the Forget Me Not Club Christmas Dinner and Dance from 2 p.m. 5 p.m. followed by dinner at Rosedale Hall. The deadline to purchase tickets is November 16th. Our land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas that the regular meeting of council agenda dated November 5th, 2024 be approved as amended this date to move item 8 information and action items. All in favor? That's carried. Disclosure of interest now at any point in time during the meeting. Moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson that the minutes of the previous regular meeting dated October 15th, 2024 and special meeting of council dated October 24th, 2024 be approved as presented. All in favor? That's carried. Any business arising from our previous meetings? We'll cover delegation.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
He's coming up here.
Oh, it's gonna be on there. Sorry.
Daniel, are you there? I do see a video on mine.
Oh, there it is.
I think I see you. Oh. Daniel, can you hear us?
It's not over. You're experiencing technical difficulties.
You should come to our speaker.
Are you able to hear us, Daniel?
if they were having issues, maybe Sarah, if you wanna just email them and then.
Yeah.
The next is our report of municipal officers. The first is our Dana planner. Student, please.
Okay, good evening, council. So the report that you have before you this evening relates to a local business in Montague Township, Gemmel's Garden Center. They recently applied for and received a demolition permit for one of the greenhouses on site with plans for immediate rebuilding. And as part of the review process for building permit applications, there is a requirement for compliance with applicable law. And applicable law includes the township's zoning bylaw. So the subject lands are located at 11862 Highway 15. They're approximately 14.5 acres in size. The front half of the property, which is about 4.5 acres, is zoned highway commercial, and the remainder is zoned rural. So when we're looking at development standards within a zoning designation, one of them is lot coverage. And this relates to the surface area of the land that is covered by structures. And it is applicable to the zone in which the structures are located. Okay, so the maximum allowable lot coverage in both the highway, commercial, and the rural zones is 20%. Based on the current structural placement, and you can see a depiction of that in the report, the agreement attached to the report, I believe. The highway commercial lot coverage is at 23.3%. And with the replacement structure, which is slightly larger than the building that was demolished, the lot coverage will total 24.9%. If you base it on the entire land holding, the lot coverage would be approximately 10%. So the nature of a garden center business, and I've learned a lot about garden centers over the last couple of weeks, it is very reliant on planting being completed by a specific time of year to ensure business operations are not negatively impacted. The replacement structure has been ordered, and there is some site work that will need to be done before the building is built. And this building needs to be constructed this fall in order to meet the deadlines for the season. So staff have had several conversations with the owner to try to come up with options to deal with the lot coverage issue. We discussed everything from relocating some of the existing structures from the front portion of the property to the rear. But this would be very expensive, very labor intensive. A minor variance, but that would only address the current situation. So for example, if another building had to be replaced or new buildings were to be proposed, then they'd have to go through the process all over again. So the most appropriate solution in staff's opinion would be rezoning the rural lands at the back of the property to the highway commercial zone. Lot coverage would then be appropriate, and it would still allow for future expansion if that was desired by the owner. A zoning amendment will take approximately 90 days to complete. And this duration would include everything from the date the application is deemed complete to the end of the 20-day appeal period following council's decision. And unfortunately, this would be too late for the owner to get the site prepared and for the new building to be built. Staff are looking for direction from council with respect to entering into an agreement with the owner that would allow the township to go ahead and issue a building permit in advance of planning approval. But this building permit would also be conditional on MTO permitting approval as well. So the owner would be required to apply for and be successful receiving a rezoning from the rural to highway commercial zone, or would be required to relocate structures to achieve the acceptable lot coverage, or apply for and be successful receiving a minor variance, or apply for and receive a rezoning to the highway commercial special exception zone for an increase in total lot coverage that would allow for the proposed and potential future coverage of structures on the property. There would also be a requirement for building permits for structures that were placed on the property that didn't have permits. So if council is agreeable with staff's recommendation, which I believe is noted in the report as option number 1, the agreement attached to this report would be signed by the reeve, clerk, and the owner, and registered on title to the owner's property. And once a remedy was achieved, which would be one of the 4 noted above, then that agreement would be able to be removed from title. The CBO would then be able to issue a building permit once MTO approval was received, and the owner would be able to complete their necessary construction this fall. So I will open it up for questions.
Questions?
Process, isn't it?
Well, yeah, nothing's easy.
Make it work.
You know, we were presented with a situation that requires a solution, and I think this is the most appropriate
More viable.
solution for the current need and also potential future need. There's no point in making someone come back time and time again. So, you know, reduce the red tape as much as possible, but know that there are still limitations to what we can do. So we do still have to follow all the proper procedures in order to make it happen.
So moved by Councillor Bass and second by Councillor Johnson, that council proceed with option 1 below in relation to the proposed development of Devil's Garden Center at 11862 Highway 15. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you.
Next is our clerk of municipal, local government.
I'm taking a message.
Okay.
Well, Daniel, you can hear us now?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. So thanks for inviting me to your council meeting this evening. My name is Daniel Siegel. I'm a Tarion builder who's been doing laneway houses and garden suites in Toronto and Hamilton since 2020. And I wanted to discuss attainable housing in Montague. Upper tier municipalities across the province are responsible for housing, from transitional housing right up until rent geared to income housing. And then it's up to the private sector to fill the gap from there all the way to what they're building these days, which are generally larger houses. And there's a really large gap in the inventory across the province when it comes to something that's attainable. The More Homes Built Faster Act of 2022 defined an affordable detached purchase price of a house in Montague at $420,000. And the stuff that developers are building are generally much higher than that. And so there's really a chasm on the street between where supportive housing ends and where developers are building. And families like mine are basically buying up attainable houses, adding additions, and taking attainable housing out of supply by upgrading them. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if new supply was coming online, but the problem is that new supply isn't coming online. And people think that a condominium, a shoebox in the sky at $1,100 a square foot is an alternative when it's really not. And so I come before you tonight with a model that I could replicate across the province to address this lack of supply of modest homes across the province. I've been doing delegations just like this for about 3 months now, where I basically come before council and say, let's have a chat later on about how to bring these types of houses to the market. And if this is something you're interested in doing, my recommendation from this delegation is to refer it to council for a report, at which point I'd be more than happy to sit down with planners and staff to present a model that may or may not work in your community. Fundamentally, because it relies on the fact that historically this type of housing was built in two large sections. So one was wartime housing in the 1920s to the 1940s, and then again in the 1980s. The common theme between the two of those was that developers had access to low-cost financing to build these types of houses. Each house I put up has a 10% internal rate of return, and if I'm paying 8.5% to the bank, I'm not building another house. It's not worth the headache. And therefore, working with low-cost access to funds or alternative construction project types start to make a hell of a lot more sense. I'll get into that offline. This is a public forum, so I guess I don't want to get into too much detail. So much to say that this is a problem that has been solved in other municipalities in North America. However, Canada has been slow to adopt models outside of Canada. And I think that 2024, we're at a kind of a turning point where interest rates are coming down. And hopefully the provincial and federal governments might stop downloading responsibility onto you as the municipality. And maybe they might upgrade the MPAC assessments from 2016 values to maybe something more recent that might help your operating budgets, because right now you're operating on very thin margins to be able to do anything. I'm acutely aware of that because I've had these conversations time and time again. And I'm fully aware that things are likely quite tight and there isn't much ability to do stuff. That being said, I am coming with connections and potentially investors to be able to take these projects from just a napkin presentation to something quite a bit more sustainable and economically responsible. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. But ultimately, my goal here is just to shine some light on the fact that a modest detached house is not something that's really been built in 40 years in Ontario at any scale. And I'm hoping to change that with a model for attainable home ownership. Thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
We'll open it up to any questions. Okay, so none at this point in time. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So moved by Councillor Bass and seconded by Deputy Reid Carroll, that council accepts the municipal house development presented on this date as information. All in favor? Carried. Now we'll move back to District Administrative Treasurer's report on committee and board appointments, please.
Thank you, Chair. So believe it or not, you're almost halfway through your appointment to council. So we're bringing this report in front of council this evening, as we are about 50% of the way through, to discuss the boards and committees that you signed up for almost 2 years ago, or for Councillor Johnson a few months ago, to make sure that everyone's happy with where they're sitting, or in case there's any changes or adjustments that might be required or requested based on various individuals and what their interests might be. Keeping in mind that we try to kind of provide the amount of time that's required, because some committees require substantially more time than others. So in front of you this evening is all of the the committees or boards that council sits on separately from council and committee of the whole. The options presented are to either remain status quo, or if council would like to provide direction to change them up, and we'll bring forward bylaws to the next meeting. For this. Now, there is one that's not on here that I think maybe we need to have discussions about as well, is that the recreation negotiation committee, because that agreement comes up in 2026. So I'm assuming that those discussions and negotiations will be starting prior to December of 2026. And depending on where we're sitting in 2026, because it's an election year, I think it's important that we potentially have that discussion as well, and appoint some people to that as well.
So we're gonna walk through each one of these?
If there's interest in change, okay, so, sure, so the first one we have is the Committee of Adjustment, which is, Councillor Bass, Deborah Carroll, Reeve Jennings, Brian Gibbs, and Tom May, for our community appointees, so is there,
I like to stand.
Carol?
so. And Reeve, you'd like to stay on, or? Or-
Yeah, I was looking to see. So Gerald, you were saying you'd like to join that one, is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, I like to stay on.
Trevor?
Not that one, but.
Okay.
I'd like to be involved in.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I want to stand.
we have Gerald, Jim, Jeff, and Karen. So we only need 3.
You go about it.
Will you vote on, so somebody can move in second Jim? You can vote,
I move Jim.
I'll, actually, no, what, to make this easy, like, I'll step away from this one.
okay,
If that's, if Gerald wants to step into it, then that's, yeah.
okay, so it kind of works because I think you're becoming the chair of committee of the whole as well next time, okay?
Yeah.
So, so we have Gerald, Jim, and Karen sitting on committee of adjustment then, okay? So, that'll be effective once we get the bylaw back to next meeting. Fence viewers are just committee appointments and myself. Livestock valuer, again, we have, a community member. Police Service Board, it is the head of council, so it's the Reeve. Rideau Valley Conservation Authority as the new,
You've been doing a great job.
the new member of council.
job. This great.
You took over from the previous, member of council, so is there any interest in anybody sitting on the RBCA? Are you interested in continuing to sit on the
I'm happy to
RBCA?
continue to sit on.
Any other interests? Anyone? Advice? No, okay, so.
You got it.
So Smith Falls Library Board, again, it's, Sarah Lynn Martin, Merrickville is Olivia. Property Standards Committee is Brian Gibbs, Tom May, and Councillor Bass. Is there any interest in Councillor Bass staying or any other members on being Committee of Adjustment or Property Standards? We have not had any meetings in the last 2 years.
You're doing a great job.
But you don't know. So is there any interest in that?
You probably might do anything for 2 years, so that's about comfortable for you, isn't it, Chuck?
Okay. So moving on, the Montague Recreation and Culture Committee, we have Brandy Atwell, Jessica Lilly, Katie Hamill, Kevin Armstrong, Kat Curry, Kayla McCollum, Chrissy Melvin, and then for council, we have Jim Abbas, Gerald Crabtree, and the alternate is Jeff Carroll. So any changes for rec?
I'll stand. I'm a pretty good cook, right?
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, we're good at doing this. You're about this.
That's why you're there.
Basically, you know.
Okay, so any change? No, we're good there. My recommendation is that we post for that committee again, though, if we don't have our 8 members. And I think it would be important to get that back out there, for community rec.
Can we leave that one as an open one as well, so people join at any point in time, because as new people come to the community, they have an interest, but if we only have a period.
Yep.
They can't join it, so
Sure.
if we could put it through as an open position, that'd be great.
Okay, so that will get posted as well. So airport commission, as per our signed agreements, it's the Reeve and Deputy Reeve that sit on that, so, there's no change there. Alternate Lanark County Council member, we have that set in the bylaw unless anybody, wants to change this. We haven't had anybody have to step in as the alternate.
That's good.
I forget about this sometimes. Is this one like where Karen and I can't be at you? Or is it just, if we can't go to a meeting, then we
They
could
can
say,
go.
then we could invite,
Oh.
so that's good to know. That's, you know,
Right?
that's kind of one of those
Yeah.
things where you do it. I didn't really think that we could do that. So that's
Yeah.
good, like, goal, like, so right now, for right now,
It's Trevor,
it's Trevor for the next, whatever,
couple months, yeah.
couple months, and then.
Mr.
And we
Abbas.
gotta go now, if Jim says, you know, I can't go.
Our
does it-
bylaw states this Jim.
It's just, so if Jim can't go, then
We
no
don't have
go,
that.
we can't go back to like the previous year or
No.
something like that, okay?
I think it's similar to how Smith Falls has theirs set up.
So it's same,
Between there too.
the same ideas, it's, okay,
Yeah.
that's good
Yeah.
to know, though, if we
Yeah.
can't go, then we'll definitely like.
Okay, so there's no interest in changing that order, it's based on alphabetical and it's just
Sounds good, yeah.
rotated through, okay. Emergency Management Program Committee, we have Counselor Crabtree, would you like to remain on that committee with us?
As long as you like me.
Stand up, John.
Well,
Okay, so we'll keep Counselor Crabtree as well. So we have, Town of Smith Falls Negotiating Committee, so this was water, sewer, and the Old Rito Regional property that was set up in April of 2024, so it was Counselor Crabtree, Debbie Carroll, and myself. As I said, though, I think that we should also discuss a recreation negotiating committee, because that will be coming up in discussions as well, and assuming shortly.
so we can on the same one. Or we can do separate ones.
It's up to council.
Well, it's all Smith Falls. But they're all separate agreements, but.
Different in the sense that the recreation is amongst like 6 other municipalities and us and them, these other 2 are just, us, 2. So, do you have interest in remaining on? Okay. This Town of Smith Falls negotiating committee, so it's water, sewer, and the Old Rito Regional property. Not that we have had any, but if it comes up, with the request that have gone in.
We keep those ones together, but then maybe do the recreation one on the side, sorry.
Yeah, no, because it's about the 6 other
Yeah, yeah.
municipalities, so I think Allison was keeping it separate. Right?
But you said
Yeah.
there's no meetings this year?
Not gonna see that.
For the recreation one, you mean?
No, this one.
Okay, for this one, we
Yeah.
haven't had anything, but,
Yeah.
yeah, not yet, no.
There's been requests.
Like, I wouldn't mind being on something like that.
Okay. Okay, so we have a bunch of interest on that one.
What are we splitting up the
No, yeah.
recreation? Well, we also the recreation one.
Yeah, so right now we're just talking about the
Water
water,
and sewer,
sewer,
right?
Rito Regional, we'll keep recreation separate.
And we'll do recreation.
Yeah.
separate.
Well, Jerry wants it all.
No, but what's,
This one here. is
Water,
water.
sewer, and Rito Regional.
Yeah.
is that something you want to do the recreation one, or do you want to do?
The water sewer one was the one that I, yeah, because I'm a little bit involved in that in Marysville,
Okay,
so I think it's really. I thought there was some that people need to keep involved.
okay.
Sure, you want to stay on it, then I'll let you guys, take that home on this.
What's that?
So then- They also have the Old Rito Regional as part of this one.
Okay,
It's both.
Yes, well, now, can we have an alternate on that
That's
too
where I
as
was,
well?
because Jim had an interest, so if Jim wanted to
Yeah,
do the regional one, and then Trevor does the water sewer one, and then Gerald does them all, then that works.
Oh, split them up that way.
Yeah, if only if, it's up,
Yeah,
but
I
can
did
we do
all.
it that way, or?
Well, sure,
Or-
yeah, it's up to
or-
council.
or just
Well,
put it
I mean, because they are 2 separate agreements as well.
The water and sewer is Counselor Crabtree and Counselor Johnson,
Yeah, and yourself,
and myself, yeah.
and then we'll do the Rito Regional with,
Crabtree?
Yeah. and then Abbas and yourself.
Okay,
Does that work?
Yeah.
Does that work with you guys?
Yeah, sure.
it's fine, with me.
It just shares the load across.
Here's the rock.
okay. And then, the recreation one is a new one, and
Okay.
it's not, I think that we should go ahead and be prepared.
I'm definitely down for that one. I've been reading up on that one a lot.
I'm assuming it's only ever been like one member of
Oh, okay.
council and a staff person because it is a big group of people.
That's fine.
I know previously, I think it was the Reeve, so I don't know.
If Karen wants to take it, I would definitely go down to the reef.
Okay, because I was gonna stay on that one. 'cause
Yes.
I would definitely,
I mean, the few meetings we have had, Ally and I have been in attendance.
I would definitely bow down to you.
And it wasn't about negotiation, it
No.
was just them updating on.
Updating, we haven't got to the negotiating part, but updating on things that are coming up, so.
Okay, so recreation is going to be Reeve and Ally.
Who's Ally?
Yeah.
Right now. Okay, so then the traffic advisory committee, which is a Lanark County committee, but we do have a member that sits on it. It was, Counselor Kenny, and Deputy Reeve Carroll was the alternate, so he stepped in at that time. So, being a county council member as well,
I'm not
kind
gonna
of
say that.
two birds, one stone. Okay. Okay, so, we'll make these changes, bring it back to the next meeting, and also you are going to see a public post, so please share away for the recreation committee, for anybody who's interested in even coming out just to see what it's about to a meeting, that'd be great. That's it for me.
So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council direct staff with option 2 and that council direct staff to post for additional recreation and culture committee members and that council direct the clerk administrator to advise all relevant bodies of the changes immediately. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas that the minutes of the previous committee of whole meeting dated October 15th, 2024 be approved as presented. All in favor? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council approve the minutes of the Marrickville Library Board meeting of September 24th, 2024 as information. All in favor? It's carried. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council approve the minutes of the Smith Falls Library Board meeting dated October 22nd, 2024 as information. All in favor? Carried. No petitions, so our bylaw is for our appointment of our Public Works Manager. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that bylaw 4095-2024 being a bylaw to appoint a Public Works Manager for the Township of Montague. Passed, signed and sealed this day.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. Welcome aboard. Ed, thank you. Welcome. Yeah,
Go back now.
so we got no. For action items, item A is the Salvation Army Challenge. And I asked that this be brought forward. So in the past, we've had the cattle challenge within Lanark County. And I know in the past, Gerald and I have participated, and I'm just looking to see if members of council are also interested in the challenge and filling in some of the hours for the Salvation Army. So if so, then I will have you contact the Salvation Army directly to let them know your availability, but I did want to see that we would be interested in doing this challenge. So we have,
I think I'm happy with the 33, so I might be able to assist you on this one.
good, good,
Go a couple of the hours anyway.
yeah, okay, so if that's good. Great, thank you. So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council accept the Salvation Army letter dated October 9th, 2024 regarding the annual Mayor Reeve Challenge as information, and we will in turn contact them. Okay, so approved, all in favor? Carried, thank you. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson. Oh, no, unfinished business, sorry. Other business, any questions of the audience before I read this? No? Are online? Okay. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson. Bylaw number 4096-2024 being a pilot to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, be passed, signed, and sealed. Please state. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and second by Councillor Bass that council adjourn the meeting, regular meeting of November 5th, 2024 at 6:35 p.m. until November 7th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. for a special meeting of council or at the call of the chair. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Welcome back to your committee of the whole meeting. So we'll open the meeting with the land acknowledgement. The council and the staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that the sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located. This meeting is being held. It's ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Shawnee Nation. So the adoption of the agenda, so moved by Reeve Jennings, seconded by Councillor Abbas, the committee of the whole agenda dated November 5th, 2024, be approved as amended this date to include the photos of the Public Works third quarter updated report. All in favor? And that's carried. Any disclosure of interest, let me know during the meeting. And no delegations, and the first report of municipal officers is our deputy clerk.
So, just a report on the cemetery software options that we have. So, basically was contacted by a company called the Managed Municipality, and they have a software program called Managed Cemeteries. They were looking to see what kind of cemeteries we have in Montague. I let them know we have two. McVean Cemetery and McCrae Cemetery. Like in the report, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information, almost nothing on McCrae. And McVean, I actually just today, this afternoon, about 3:30, got something from the Lanark genealogy department of the closest thing we've got to a list of plots and people in the cemetery. No mapping yet. So basically the software is built around mapping mostly at first. So they basically fly a drone over your cemetery and do up like a digital map of everything. That creates everything on the software as far as even landmarks, stuff like trees, roads, stuff like that. And then once they put in individual headstones digitally, it's you can kind of hover over the headstone, click on it, tells you who was buried there, whether or not they were cremated, stuff like that. It's really neat. It is a really neat software. We can also post it to our website so that if public wants to inquire about who's buried there, anything, they can kind of get the front end of it and limited access to that kind of stuff. On the back end for us, it really helps with keeping records, producing annual reports, stuff like that. I did get the kind of a approximate, because we are, what I estimated at the McVean Cemetery is approximately just under 200 plots. So when getting a price quote for them, I kind of went with that. And he said that it would be anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 kind of startup fee. And then after that, it's an annual fee, he said, estimating again, no more than $1,000. But in discussing the lack of information with the company, we would be very limited on what that software could do for us right now. They're used to having townships and cities kind of give them like a spreadsheet, and they're able to enter that in, but we don't have any of that stuff. So unfortunately, other than creating a nice pretty map of what our cemetery looks like, that would kind of be what we are limited to for right now. So good to know for going forward that if we do tend to, if we can find more information and stuff like that, then it's something we can look at. But as of right now, with the lack of information, that's kind of where we're at. So, any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Jim. Yeah.
Just, how many people are buried in the two plots still? Or is this just what's been buried before?
This is before. So as far as we know, the McVean Cemetery is full.
Okay.
We do get inquiries, I believe, Allison was getting inquiries about family members and stuff like that and like maintenance. and replacing stones and stuff if they wanted to. McCrae Cemetery is a very small family cemetery that's been closed for a very long time. So going forward, I don't think there's going to be much for selling of plots or anything like that, so.
Chair through you. So they're both inactive, so we can't sell plots for them. But there's still people that own plots that the funeral homes still reach out to us in relation to burial locations on some of the that are not full, right? So they've been sold, but there's nobody in that space, fees or anything like that. We don't collect any of these fees. It's solely on the taxpayer to pay for us to look after those cemeteries at this point in time because they're inactive and have been for years. So we don't collect any funds on the sale of plots.
Gerald?
So essentially this $2,000 to $4,000 initial fee would be more taxpayer money just paying for it. And then every year an extra $1,000 on something that we're not creating any revenue from and not getting anything from. So I would be apt to say that this might be great in the future if there's more that we can use it for, but to use it for something that's just gonna cost money and that we can't really get anything except for some pretty that people can click on, I would say no. My opinion.
That's fair. You're allowed to do that. Trevor?
Chair, do we have any, requirements to provide this sort of information? Is there anything that says we have to have a certain, database or anything like that? Or is this just you're doing it based on goodwill?
Not that I have found, and in looking in other townships, not a lot of townships surrounding us at least have anything like this offered on their website. I did reach out to other townships as well to see what kind of cemetery tracking, if they have any software or what kind of stuff that they do. Of course, Smith Falls has one of the biggest ones around, so they basically have a spreadsheet of a list that they kind of, it's a live document that they just kind of keep adding to and stuff, but other than that, nobody has anything like that, no.
Yeah, cause sort of just to continue. There's a number in, across the river there, and they've become heritage sites, this the designation. Now, there's no asking about things like that or anything like that, right?
So Chair through you. So we do have a requirement to provide people locations of these plots that we have taken. We don't have to do it over a software. But it all comes down to what was provided to us in documentation at the time that these people left these cemeteries. So if they didn't leave anything or provide anything, because we have another cemetery that people are also trying to leave to us. But I pushed back at the bereavement authority and stated they haven't provided us anything. So we can't take this over with any kind of documentation. So, now Merrickville Wolford, they're trying to make their cemeteries heritage. I'm not sure why. As far as that goes, we don't have a heritage here. So, and I think we cannot, as a municipality, when someone walks away from a cemetery, we have to maintain that as a cemetery, even if that's cost the repairs. So we don't have the choice to close it. So I'm not sure why they deem them heritage, because we still have the responsibility to take care of that, cemetery or facility.
The thing with that though, the ones they're trying to make heritage, they've been abandoned for years and no one even knew they were there. So there's been no maintenance or anything like that in something until very recently. So I just wonder, the more you get involved in this, the more you end up having to pay.
Yeah, so, obviously they were never a licensed cemetery then, because as soon as there's a license, every year we have to file a report,
Right.
based on the license. So if you don't file a report, they're coming after you. And then my understanding with Bereavement Authority of Ontario is that in the event that it's a cemetery that has license and they don't, they will start to transfer it to the municipality. So, I'm not sure with that specific, maybe it was like family private ones or something that didn't have a license, but for ours, they're licensed and we do an annual report showing 0 because we can't sell anything, they're inactive. But they can become very expensive and very cumbersome, because we do have a responsibility to replace anything that's broken and vandalized and all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's why I was asking about that, like, is there something more to this? Because the heritage designation that they're trying to do on the other side of the river there, it will cost the municipality money.
Mhm.
You know, because of exactly what you were talking about, something gets broken, no one even knew that that cemetery was there, other than the people who lived around it.
Mhm,
So it's one of those, and there's lots of abandoned ones around,
mhm.
Yeah,
so,
There is, yeah. We have two that have been handed over.
okay.
Yeah, because back in the day, some of them were called family,
Mhm.
not cemeteries. They actually just.
And that's what the McCray one was definitely one of those, so
But it's McCray is a license.
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the difference, I didn't realize that they were licensed ones, I thought perhaps they were abandoned ones. Yeah,
Are their license.
But I'm also argent too.
yeah, you have a question from council at all, or? So, put that, so the council, moved by Councilor Vast, second by Councilor Crabtree, the council accepts the managed cemetery software report presented to the state as information. Yeah, we would.
We
So
didn't have to bring an option.
we didn't have to,
It was presented as an
so we're just gonna do it as information for now. Okay, so all in favor of that then? That's carried. Next up is the clerk administrator treasurer on the East Zone.
Thank you, Chair. So I did, the Beast had reached out to the office. So I did meet out there in relation to a trail crossing on Carroll Road. So it was Stormy North Elmsley and myself and the trail coordinator for Beast. In the discussions, it was noted that the Rideau Snowmobile Club, which is the other snowmobile club in this area, we have a bylaw agreement with them for what road allowances they use, along with insurance and all those things that goes back to the 2009. The Beast, we don't have a bylaw with them, so they've asked us to sign an MOU, which is attached to this report. Basically stating that we're covered for insurance through Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs of Ontario. And during those discussions, and my recommendation to council this evening is that they've been using these road allowances, we're formalizing, making sure that we have insurance, and that the new public works manager will work on updating the agreement and bylaws for both clubs and bring them back to formalize them for the 2025-2026 season. As far as I know, the crossing, the trail change on the Carroll Road will be for the 25-26 season. They just wanted to proactively reach out and discuss some of those changes and what we might require. So they're working on that for next season. So this is kind of a housekeeping item. Let's make sure that we have some liability and coverage through the organization. It's signed, and then we'll come back with some formal agreements showing exactly what road allowances and things that they're using. And really formalize that so that if staff ever leave, it's all in bylaw.
Makes sense, cleans it up. Yeah. Councilor Crabtree, second by Councilor Johnson. The council approved the clerk administrative treasurer to enter into the MOU, the Beast Snowmobile Club for the 2024-2025 snowmobile season, and the county road staff to bring back a report and update agreements with both clubs for the 2025-2026 season. All in favor? That's good. Next up is the third quarter public works update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we've also been busy in Public Works. I'm enjoying my acting duties. I'm excited Ed starts today or this week. It's the third quarter, plus I've added October to this report because October is completed as well. So we've been busy. We've had a number of trees that were either on a road allowance close to a home or something along those natures. So Boat Launch, Rainbow Valley had some trees removed, and here at the township office, we had our big, like 200-year-old oak trees out front. They all got haircuts to take the weight off them to try and preserve the tree and allow it to continue to be there without putting a lot of stress on it. And we had the stump that's been cut off since I've been here out front. We had it taken off and cleaned up. Signage, so all the reflectivity that was included in the budget to get done, our signs were in good shape. We have all the signs, they'll be installed in 2025, or if they get any time here in the fall, but we've been busy with a number of other little activities. So all the trucks have had their safeties, they've all had their undercoating, we have our CVOR updated, everything's ready to go for the 2025 season. Students We were sad to see them go, but they're back off to school. They did a great job. And we were very fortunate to have 2 great students again this year, so. We thank them very much for all they did this year. Culverts, so we completed the Gilroy Road culvert, which was a shared project with the city of Ottawa. We're just waiting next week. The asphalt overlay is to be completed for that. Other culverts throughout the year were Nolan's Road, Carroll, McLaughlin, Richardson, and Salter. Talk about Birchall later in Capital. Microservicing was completed on time and under budget. Garbage actually has been pretty consistent. I don't consider a 1.15% or 3.6% a big variance. That's pretty consistent, and overall we're under budget from where we were under the tonnage from where we were last year to date. We still have ongoing complaints about recycling, and a lot of the other municipalities that have now transitioned as well are seeing those complaints that we've advised them about. General operations, the crew is just doing all of those things that they normally do, our beaver activities, doing schedules, entrance permits. They also assisted at the mighty machine, and we greatly appreciate them for that. Those types of events rely on people like them. Capital, so our tandem truck is set up, ready to go. Truckmatics got completed yesterday on it. We're just waiting for the decals. The 22 acres, so we have, the dozer will be going over there this week to shape the hill, so we've brought enough clean fill over there. So the dozer's actually just finishing our pad for the tarp shed. And then he'll be going over there to complete the sliding hill, and depending on if it stops raining, maybe start on the walking pad. The storage building, as I said, they're just doing the pad, and we're just waiting for an actual date for install. Should be any time, hopefully. McGuire Road, so we did add pictures for McGuire Road, so we got the shoulders cut down to the same elevation of the road, which is going to really allow Public Works to shove some of that snow off the road to allow for the full surface to be used this year. Amazingly enough, they did not hit rock. I cannot believe it. We thought for sure we had bets on it, and they didn't. So yeah, win there because we've hit rock everywhere here. So that's great. The roads need study. Staff has provided back substantial comments and revisions and alterations that are required, and it's to be presented to council in December. Virtual road culverts, so due to the late availability of the pipe and the RVCA permitting, we were pushed back, and there's discussions. It's supposed to be done next week, but I will keep everybody posted, and we will also advise the school, bus and local, like that area, and we'll post on social once we get a confirmed date from Tackleberry. All the gravel maintenance was completed on schedule. Public Works was busy for the third quarter. So some other things that I didn't even remember to put on here was we locked in propane for all 3 suppliers. So we're seeing about a 30 cent per liter reduction that we locked in with them. So that's great. We potentially are gonna go to RFP next year once we know what kind of potential propane needs the new building will require. So we have gone ahead and requested pricing for engineering to complete, and I have the pricing, so you'll see it at the next meeting, to go ahead and get tenders and drawing documents prepared for Ferguson, Tetlock, McLaughlin, and Birchall Road Culvert number 2, which I will talk about later this evening, to go ahead and make sure that we're capital ready for those projects to get competitive pricing. Roseville Road North, we received the geotechnical and the drawings, so that is a shelf-ready project for us, which is great. So all in that, the crew has been great. They've been enthusiastic and have put up with me for the last several months, so kudos to them.
Awesome.
That's
Very good.
a very, very detailed and amazing amount of work for sure as well. Hopefully council for any questions or comments.
No, just it's.
You guys are awesome.
Great work. It is great. By everybody. That's a lot of stuff to
A
do.
lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
With a small team too as well.
Yeah.
So I would say like. It's
We're sparse.
but Mike.
Sparse, we're spread out, right? It's not
Yeah.
sparse, we're spread out.
We're working
So-
properly.
but we, yeah, like we have a large area to cover with few staff is what I'm trying to say. A large area with few staff.
That's great, thanks.
But yeah, but they're doing great.
Oh, yeah.
We're spread thin, exactly, thank you.
We call it busy.
But yeah, they are busy, they are busy.
Yeah, yeah, the productivity is A1 for sure, so well done. And please pass that on to the guys. as
I
well,
will,
For sure,
yeah.
yeah. So moved by Councillor Johnson and second by Reed Jennings, that the council accepts the third quarter public works update presented this as information along with all the beautiful pictures from Aware Road. All in favor? And that's great.
Well, it's been a project, it's been in the works for a long time, so that's great.
Lots safer. The school bus driver is gonna love it. Next up, and we're just talking about culverts, so keep on talking with Allison, go ahead. Sorry, I skipped one, I skipped it, sorry. My bad, yeah, that's your next favorite thing. Insurance, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So, in front of you is the 2025 insurance and risk management renewal. We are seeing a slight increase, and I have provided a table that we've seen a slight increase every year. So now if you do look at the market though, it is changing from a strong to a soft. It's starting to transition to a soft market after some of the troubles that insurance companies have seen over the last several years. So it is a small increase. We had allowed for more than that in the original budget, so that has been brought back in the budget that's going to be presented to you this evening. For this year, we are recommending to go ahead and move ahead with this. We did provide our documents in August. We provide them well in advance to try and get the most competitive pricing for them to be able to shop, and it's not a panic at the end of the year. And my recommendation, as long as we're fully staffed, is to go to RFP next year if we continue to see that insurance market transition to the soft market, because I think we will see more competition. You're gonna see that more competitive pricing. But for this year that we continue on, it's a slight increase, and others are still seeing substantially higher increases than we are, so.
Yeah, for some big kick-ups for next year, so I'd say, so this is a reasonable, the last time we went to RFP was
2018,
18, okay, so yeah.
when I was here as the treasurer.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So we're due, yeah, so.
Yeah.
That'll be next year discussion for sure, this one was pretty good, so, any questions?
Other municipalities though have seen like 100% increases.
Huge increases, yeah.
So we've been, yeah,
Okay.
Lanark Highlands, I know, for example, went up over $100,000 last year.
I think Smith Falls just said they went up good amount too as well, so over
Yeah.
$100,000 as well, so, yeah.
So.
Any questions on insurance?
No, probably not, but again.
Yeah.
So moved by Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Abbas. Councillor Haber, I accept the proposal of AON Reed Steenhouse Incorporated in the amount of $103,745 plus tax for the services of insurance and risk management. The council appoint AON Reed Steenhouse Incorporated as the Township of Montague's insurance broker for the policy term commencing January 1st, 2025, and the treasurer be authorized to enter into the agreements as required for the placement of the extended insurance program. All in favor? That's good. Now, we can talk about culverts.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. This is our OSIMS, or Ontario Structural Inspection Manual Report, which we do every 3 years based on the legislation. And previously so we went back through all the previous ones, and we only ever had the 5. We didn't have the second virtual culvert. So whenever we received the draft and I went through it with the lead hand, the second virtual culvert came up. So we did ask for Galloway, and they very quickly reacted, and they weren't asked to inspect it, so it wasn't on them at all. So they went and they inspected it, and staff had already noted, because they went to look at it to verify that it was the 3-meter size minimum. And we knew it was in really poor shape. And you're gonna see on this report that it's in extremely poor shape. And this is going to be added to our 2025 budget. We're not afraid of it failing this winter. We know once everything freezes up, it'll be solid. But then next year, we have to wait for the fish spawning season, so it'll be after July 16th. But this will be an immediate need. Unfortunately, it's a big culvert, and it's in worse shape than our other virtual culvert that's getting fixed this year. So, again, I've already reached out to engineering. They've already provided a price. to do the documents for us and to prepare this and look after it. So it's gonna be ready to go. I just have to get it to council, next meeting. Other than that, it, like Richard's, our one from 2 years ago was perfect.
Well, it's interesting because even on the Matheson one, it says, 5 to 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years, and 3 years ago, it said 5 to 10 years still as well. So it seems to be holding up, I guess,
Yeah, so it just depends on the amount of erosion and they haven't seen a huge amount of change in that time period. But again, keeping in mind that the virtual culvert had previously said 4 to 6 and then started failing,
Right,
right?
right.
So we have to be prepared that it, it potentially is not gonna be 5 years.
Yeah.
either.
we can hope, but it may not.
Yeah.
Any questions on that from council as far as that goes? Seeing none, so good. So moved by Councillor Bass and seconded by Councillor Crabtree. The council accepts and approves the report for the 2024 OSIM as presented on the state, and the council directs the clerk of the treasury to enact a virtual over number 2 for the 2025 budget as per the recommendation from this report. All in favor? That's carried. Now, without further ado, what everybody's doing here for is the first draft of the 2025 budget. Take it away. Whenever you're ready to go.
Just go in the open.
So this is technically gonna be draft 2, just because the original draft, that was put on the website on September 30th. There's been some changes with the biggest impact honestly being the open contract that we were provided on October 4th. That's seeing $136,000 increase, which relates to a 3.78% increase on our tax rate to account for that. So when we received a number of other things as well, though. We've been verified what our Ontario Municipal Partnership funding is going to be for this year. We got our solid numbers for insurance. So we had some good information and good news come forward as well. The taxes for the old Rideau Regional, so that was an extra $5,000 that we hadn't indicated in the first budget. So we got a lot of the unknowns provided to us, to be able to provide a second draft to council to reflectively change some things. So I will go through all of these throughout the budget as well. But like I said, so we had an increase in the Rideau Regional. Our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund is going up $7,700 next year. We use some reserves to offset the change from a full-time to, or a part-time to a full-time inspector, which again, we weren't accounting for that for the first original budget, but we received a retirement notice. Our insurance went, we got a better pricing than anticipated. We changed some of the volunteer flat training expenses, earnings and expenses just to reflect more currently of what we're using. We reduced the transfer to reserve for the new complex. So I did go back through with the half a point that interest rates changed, and reviewed with, and did all the numbers with Infrastructure Ontario. This is obviously based on kind of a best case scenario as far as we would use $1.5 million of our building reserves, which we have been able to build up more substantially than we thought over the last 2 years with the interest income that we've had from our investments because interest was good. So we, instead of a 3% increase, we're looking at a 2 this year. It would be a 2 next year and a 2 in 2027. And right now for 2028 it's showing at 0.8. But again, if interest rates adjust at all, it may not even be that, okay? So, and again, that's all reliant, we're very early stages in that's if everything goes okay. I think that for the most part, we have to take out substantially more rock than what we were anticipating there. So that's going to be a change order. I'll present to council once I get the numbers next week at our bi-weekly meeting. But so with all of those changes, we're kind of presenting a second draft to council to say, okay, this is where we potentially could be. So we're looking at the township operational and capital at about a 1.95, 1.96% increase in the tax rate. And we're still gonna have that OBP of 3.78 though. Unless council wants to cut further services that we provide to offset their wage increase. So with all that being said. So for the budget, we're obviously trying to hit a realistic target. Council didn't give us a target, but us as staff realize what the current financial market is and what the community impact is on tax rate and the taxes that they pay to this municipality for us to do our jobs and follow everything out. Priorities were plan recommendations, the asset management plan, roads need study, strategic plans. As you saw this evening, the OSIM is gonna change, adding the virtual, the second culvert. Those are things that if they fail, they have a big impact on our community. So we did look at some alternative service approaches, which we've changed as well, and prioritizes essential services. So we did have some asks from some local boards that council will need to discuss this evening, that weren't necessarily roads, fire, those real essential services that everyone is using on a daily basis. So we did consult staff, obviously council, and it was out to the ratepayers for almost 4 weeks, for comment. So some issues and changes that we saw throughout the budget was wages and salaries. So, based on a 2% CPI, the change in the CBO went from part-time to full-time with the retirement notice that we received, so that had to change. Increasing in reserve allocation for the new complex, so we are still putting that sum in to, not 3%. 10% insurance increase, but it was still better than what we had anticipated. IT and security costs, those seem to be ever increasing with the world today. Waste disposal increase of $10,000, so we still have a very reasonable contract, but we have a small increase for that. The provincial contracts, the OPP contract for 2025 is the biggest impact on our budget. It includes a 26% increase based on the collective bargaining change that they did for wages over 2023, 24, I should say 25. So that relates to a 3.78% tax rate increase for us. There's other municipalities that are seeing 5, 6, 7, 8% increases that they're starting just with the OPP contract. So it is a big number for us, but it's still less than some others are seeing. Unknown still are the RVCA budget, which is relatively small, and we've accounted for a small increase there that I feel comfortable with. Airport expenses, the library, that's one of the board requests that I think you guys need to have a discussion on. And then the Capital McLaughlin Road section. So that's a shared road. Our agreement with Beckwith is that we are to provide 2 years notice. Beckwith has reached out though and stated that they're going to include it on their draft budget as well. So that's good news, but their council still has to approve and they have to have those discussions. So if McLaughlin is not approved by them, as I stated earlier, we're going to go ahead and try and get all the tenders, everything ready for Ferguson Tetlock, because that was the next lowest scored road on our roads need and has been on roads needs for previous years, that road could go ahead and be subbed in 2025. So we did see savings. So fire training reduction, drainage superintendent, just based off previous year's use. And now with the 4 drain completed this past year, that can come down, and complete in-house. So we're gonna complete in-house instead of paying others to do it, our long-term financial plan, our gravel maintenance plan and policy. And we locked in the winter salt pricing for the next 2 years, so that's a nice stable cost for us as well. So additional revenue, the old Rideau Regional, our OMPF fund, building permit fees, so based on the change in fees. And we do anticipate looking at that again, because we are still extremely low. And planning fees based on the changes that were done in 2024. So what does that mean for the tax rate? So the township portion of taxes, so I kind of split it out because I think it's important to note that we have absolutely zero say on the OPP contract and what they approved, and we get a bill and it's, you have 30 days to pay this. So the portion for all of the other services that we provide, it's 1.95% tax rate increase for the municipality. So that's the impact on a $100,000, $300,000 and $500,000 house. So on a $300,000 house, which is above the median assessment in this municipality, it'll be just under $46 for the year on what all of the services we're providing. The OPP contract will be 3.78% on a $300,000 assessment. That's an $89.16 change to pay for the policing, okay? So here, the overall impact would be a 5.73%. On a $300,000 house, it would be $135.42 a year. So our median assessed single detached in Montague is $237,000. Keeping in mind that's still based off the 2016 valuation. Because I know everyone's going, wow, my house is more than this. Yes, we've been frozen here. So the tax impact on that is $106.96 a year, or $8.91 a month. The OPP accounts for $70.44 of that, and the township is getting $36.52 of that. Okay, so I do think it's important to break this down for that purpose. So I think it's also important to discuss what's a 1% increase for Montague, because it's different in every municipality, and just because one municipality says they're doing 4%, that could be more than what we're asking. 1% for us is just under $36,000, okay? So our neighboring municipalities and other municipalities in Lanark County, our 1% is the lowest value. So when we say we're going up 5%, that is the lowest value for, whereas like Lanark Highlands is 48,573, Carlton Place is 152,626, when they're talking about 1% to adjust their budgets. I think this is important to know. So how much do we collect in taxes each year to run the township? Just under 3.6 million is 2024's number. And again, I'm presenting you other Lanark County municipalities and what they collect to do the same things we do. And we're $1 million less than the next closest to us to operate the municipality. Those are 2024 numbers, but I think it's important to note that we run very lean already to do the same as some of our other small, I don't consider the towns the same, they're much bigger, but. So I also am bringing forward how many households, this is based on the census, how many household counts, population, square kilometers. So again, you'll see we have less households, the population's smaller. So things are a little different for us. How does it relate to budget? Well, the fewer properties you have, the less you can disperse the tax burden. The less and lower assessment to calculate the tax rate, this leads to a perception of a high tax rate. Provide similar services other with less budget and fewer staff. Efficiencies are very important. And community feedback and input into what services they wish to remain or be cut from the budget is extremely important for this. So, any questions on that before we go through the departmental overview?
So I'll open that up to the council as far as any questions or.
I do appreciate you reviewing it and trying to trim as much fat as it were, because I know you did a lot of work to rework the numbers. So I do appreciate that. Because I remember looking at the first court budget, that was before we had the OPP, and the new one, and kudos to whatever you did to work your magic.
She's done great. I think the staff has done great on this budget. We were at before, and you got the OPP thing in there, it's, we got no control over that, so. What we ended up with, I think it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so just in review, the Valley's brought up some other municipalities, so I was doing some inquiries as well with some of our neighboring, and I mean, to provide us a draft that is as minor as you can possibly get for an increase to be able to function and run a municipality the same as other municipalities are running, we're doing very well, because you're not going to find others are going to be able to come in as low as what our staff have presented to us. They've been very fiscal in going through line by line, looking for every savings that they can possibly get. And saying just in fire about, well, you know what, this year we can change our training and things like that. That's fiscally responsible. That's not bringing a budget that is saying, let's stay status quo, let's pad it so that council can cut it, because I mean, other municipalities are having a draft come to them that could be at a 6%. By the time they're done cutting, they get down to 3%. We're fortunate that our staff are reviewing, giving us how can they function in the legislative requirements that are needed and still have a place that we can operate the way we have been. We've been moving forward so well with our recreation, 22 acres, and finally getting the new build that's needed and still keeping the rates that we've got. The OPP is something totally out of our control, out of every other municipality's control. And the way that it's been broken down to show you that 1.95% is what we control, as in staff, council, and then the other is out of our hands. So definitely thank you to staff and to Allison for all that time and effort put into this budget, because it saves us having to go down and dime and do everything else. So your time and efforts to everybody is greatly appreciated.
Well said, Rudy. I think that's, you tied it up, I think, pretty good too as well. 'Cause I think that 1.95 number is the one that's the big one too as well, where it's like, I'm actually amazed that it's at that number and maintaining and being able to do the service and everything that we're doing. I think many are gonna struggle to have that too as well. So I think once again, the conscious mind, and I think Ali really hit it on the head when she said, like, very conscious of what is out there with the climate and what people are feeling. I mean, ideally, we'd love to keep it at, 0% or go negative, but I think like there's a realistic side of it. I think this is a really good piece to show that, we're doing everything we can, but also trying to keep up all the services that we need. So that's well done. So without further, unless Trevor might,
Yeah, just to agree with all of the comments that the obvious driver is the OPP, beyond our control, 3.78. We're lucky that it's only that, to be quite honest with you. You watch what the RCP are doing out of the prairie, keep up with that. It's a huge driver and we can't control it. So for Ali and the team to have been able to hit 1.95, I'm really impressed. I'm also very impressed with how you broke it out that way, because it's an excellent explanation that I can use going forward on how, you're chatting with different ratepayers and stuff like that, because what we're doing is spot on and the lowest of the county when I look around at it. And it's a driver beyond our control, 3.78. So
that's a great point, because like this information is beautiful to get out to, and like, it's like, what we can almost say, like, for this point of the YouTube video to listen to what this is all about, and this slide deck is wonderful to break it down, because there's already that chatter about that 5%, out there, and it's like, you gotta read everything, because I think that's gonna be a really good information. So that's fantastic. So let's dive in, Ali.
yeah.
Favorite part. Okay, so, we'll start with the, taxation and other revenue. So again, beside every line item that changes, I leave a note, so that everyone knows what's going on. Again, there's some small increases, nothing really too much. I'll use dividers next year. Thank you. Sorry. Make note. So any questions on this? We kind of discussed the ORMF and the small changes on that.
Any questions on the revenue side of things from council at all? I see none, so.
Okay.
Venture on.
So this is council's section here. So really, the only thing that changed was the COLA adjustment. And I know that there's discussion on what kind of if anybody's going to any conferences. I know that we have 3 members going to Roma. To be honest, because the expenses weren't these this year, I'm expensing Roma into the 2024 budget to allow us some extra room into next year. So is there any real change? The current budget allows for $4,000 per member in relation to conferences.
Any questions as far as the council is? You're saying that the current one is $4,000?
Yeah, if you add the 7, the 4, and the 1 together,
Yeah,
so the 12.
Okay.
Because every conference is split between the 3.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, overall, we have $12,000 there. So that's been the only one that you guys discussed last year, so, and we left it the same. But I just didn't know if there was.
But
a taste for change on that this year, but keeping in mind.
There's basically that amount kind of allows for like, a couple of conferences.
Usually it allows for approximately 2, depending, as long as you get like early bird pricing on stuff.
Yeah, so Roma, we'll say Roma and AMO would be your two big ones, and then if there's a discussion point, if you know, the council member wants to, or if you're someone's not going to AMO, someone else wants to go too.
Mhm.
That'd go, but I think that seems pretty fair, right? So,
Yeah.
which is
And those
fair.
are
They're
worthwhile
Those are the
conferences.
two.
Yeah.
There are two that you pull the most from. If you come back to the council table and actually have information where we can source funding or source recommendations and.
Yeah,
like last year.
yeah. There's value. I mean, the Good Roads one was I found it educational, but bringing back something was not, it was just more of an eye opener to what was going on out there, but it wasn't. Yeah, I think that's what's good. Perfect. Thanks,
Okay.
Al. Move on.
So nothing there. Yep. Next one is our admin budget. So, some changes. So we are using some of the, salary reserve that we set up whenever we had a savings of approximately 127,000 that we said we would be doing this with to offset and not hit the repairs all at once for some of those changes. And then again, we can utilize some of that to offset the transition of a part-time to a full-time CDO. So, and still leaves reserves there to slowly bring that in. So, no concern there. So again, based on 2% COLA, so that changes, CPP, EI, WSIB, some small changes in the benefits package, not changes in the package itself, but some small increases to the, costs. Postage, so we increased it slightly. Some of those costs in there, it's looking like it's extremely over budget. Some of that cost is the big messenger that went out in the fall. That is to be split amongst all the departments because everybody had something in there and everybody has an advertising line. So overall, we are not even remotely over budget. It's just, it's all sitting in that one line item. I just want to clarify that. Every department was taking a small share of that because we thought it was important to get all of that information out to everybody. Our accounting fees, which we've already discussed for this year, is slightly over, based on we had to get the AROs completed and that extra work for those PSAP requirements. Small reduction, in the contracted services because our asset management plan, should be completed. And if not, I will be accruing all of the expenses into 2024, so it won't impact the 2025 budget any of this. Insurance again, so our estimate was, now that we've received it, was better than anticipated, so, not a whole lot of change there. Small increase in IT, as discussed, and we moved the reserve allocation for the Public Works Fire Complex over to fire. So it doesn't look like it's all for an admin building, so I think there's been some confusion out in the public that we're getting a new building and we're not, we're staying right here. So I wanted to make it clear that it's, fire side and Public Works. And nothing for elections yet, but that'll be starting next year.
Any questions as far as, that goes? I think that's a great idea to switch it over to the, so it's from the admin side of it, because it clears up the sort of confusion about what the focus is really on.
Mhm.
And I might make that plug for the postage side of it, saying is, sign up for e-billing and sign up for getting it in your email and save a few bucks to the township for us having to send out postage too as well, so.
Yeah, so we try to push that absolutely, and I think even speaking about seminars and conferences, you'll see on our budget, we didn't use a lot of it. Again, we as staff also we realize that it's expensive to go to those things, and we try to only go when we think it's going to benefit us in our position here to benefit the ratepayers, okay? So if there's nothing on there that we can't get through a training or a free webinar, we're not going just to go. I realize that it's good to network, but we also can network other ways that are not that expensive. So keeping in mind that we're not making any changes to any of that stuff either. No nice to haves.
So on the postage being up too, I mean, it's the fact that to get the information out, because we don't really have the newspaper and we have a local, but we had to get it out to people. And that was the way to do it. And it made sense to get as much as we needed. the most that we've ever put out in our newsletter was this year, and it was fabulous for that much information to get to the residents.
Yes.
So, yep.
And as the Reeve said, like, so for us to do that great big package, it sure was mailed to every single, or emailed to every single person. It was about the cost of 3 inserts in a paper, but we were able to get 10 pages of information. It seemed to be well received, in relation to that. So we do plan on, it may not always be 10 pages. It depends on how much we have to give out. But we're already starting marches. So,
So the cost, the thing is, the cost of getting it out to everybody individually is basically the basic cost of putting into 3, which like a few people.
3/4 page ads.
Where
basically.
people, where like it would only reach, who knows how many small amount of
Yeah.
people. So that's a very good, a very
Yeah.
good point as far as the cost of what when people say, oh, you're sending out this big envelope.
That's
We give you
why-
all of that information and it costs less than 3 like advertisements in a newspaper that you probably wouldn't have read.
We can make sure that every single taxpayer, whether they live here or don't, whether they have vacant land or a house, that they're all getting the same information,
That's a
Mhm.
really good piece of communication.
whether they choose to read it or not.
That's another piece too.
But they have it.
And it would be great if people would sign up for the emailing, the electronic, because I mean, we have a lot of younger people that have come to the community and that's the way they prefer it. And so if we can get more and more going, that's great.
A lot of the community events are getting people to sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter because there are, especially like the senior centerpieces and things, they're selling out. So people want to know about us, they can get in here right away. So those types of things are also getting people to sign up so that they know what's going on, which is good.
Wonderful. Next.
Okay, so we have fire. And to be honest, I think the chief is probably one of my easier, other maybe person. As far as changes, so. Not a lot here. So the truck is, currently the chassis is at the location, so we are going to be paying. There's a check going out, this week for us. We're paying for the chassis to make sure that it's solid, it's ours. Again, that'll go into a work in progress. So you're gonna see the full cost on this budget, but technically we're paying part of it this year. Again, based on 2% change in wages, and any benefits, those types of adjustments. Council did approve the $15,000 to set up online fire permitting. It should honestly last us about 3 years, probably based on the tokens. And that's all funded from modernization, not from taxation. The modernization fund that the province gave us during COVID, not taxation, okay? So that is just a pull from the reserve. That's what it was used for. And should set us up for the next couple of years before we have an operating cost there. And again, you'll see that we moved the debenture reserve allocation over to fire. So last year we increased it to 146,000. We're gonna add another 72, so we'll be at the 218 this year. Which based off a $5.5 million loan at the current interest rate, that would be more than 50% of a payment per year. Based on the expected completion date of this being late next year, our first payment won't be till 2026. So that'll give us 2026 to still get that extra 2%. So I think we're still in a pretty safe position there. Not a lot of changes anywhere else. That's it from the chief.
He was pretty easy, eh?
He's super.
That's really good. Any, like, runs it really, like a really, it's not easy to run a fire department, like that size on the dollars that are there. So I think that's quite remarkable. We have a A1 team out there, A1 guys and girls, and the equipment is there for everybody too as well. So any questions from council as far as that goes? No.
Comment the number of volunteer hours that they put into our community as well. So yes, they're doing the training so that they're there to protect our properties as needed. But coming out to all of the functions that we have, they're there quickly to volunteer and assist. I mean, we're very fortunate in our community to have so many that don't, and I mean, those hours aren't here. I mean,
That's impressive.
it's great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fine. All right, that's fantastic. So let's keep going.
Okay, so police services, this one has a bit of a change. So we did pull, because we do have police reserve, so we do think it's important whenever you see those big increases, we did allocate, pull some from the reserve. And we technically could allocate more, if council chose to reduce that 3.78%. I know that AMO, the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and other groups that we're working with as well is pushing back on the province, I think, to ask for maybe not a all at once hit. So this could potentially change slightly. You're really seeing worst case scenario, I think, in front of you this evening in relation to that. So other than that, there's the changes from changing from our lower tier police service board to the joint Lanark County Service Board. Those are the main changes on this one.
Yeah. How much could you move from reserve to lower that 3.7?
So keeping in mind that if we're doing that, we're gonna get it next year. So we have in the budget. We have 65,000 still. So technically, we could eat half of it this year almost, and then half of it next year, but keeping in mind that we have other items that are also kind of being pushed off this year for next year. And I think sometimes when you split it up over 2 years, people forget about the police increase from this year, and it's gonna look like it's just all of us next year. But
The police thing is also going up for renegotiation.
in 2025, yeah,
That's gonna be, there's gonna be a preparation for that, because there's gonna be like advocation and everything else, will that actually follow through, so things as well, so we need to be almost thinking that forward too.
yeah, so my recommendation to you guys moving forward is that if they're not going to go ahead and budget a certain percentage, that we need to start doing that ourselves, so that we don't have this big impact. That if we do a slight increase, put it into reserve, so that whenever we're not getting hit with a 3.78, that we plan some, so it doesn't seem as bad. Because normally in municipal world, if you have a union, if you're in negotiations, you go ahead and plan a percentage, so that it doesn't hit all at once. Yeah,
Yeah, because we're getting a double whammy right now with the huge increases that a lot of these union contracts are getting right now. Whether or not that's gonna continue into the future, you know, we don't know that, but it's a tough time right now. Eat the 3.78. You said that there's pushback and the Ontario government?
yeah. So we had all been set up, we were registered for webinars where they go through the annual contract that they provide to us, and usually it's small changes, like it's nothing major. They canceled them all.
Oh, really?
So I feel like there's discussions happening in the background, and I know a lot of municipalities are bringing forward budgets, not even including the OPP in it.
Really?
And they're still starting at 6-7% without the OPP.
How can they bring it forward without the OPP?
Because they're saying just in case they get shoved back or whatever, they're just saying just focus on this.
It doesn't make
And
the
we'll,
numbers look.
the
so
OPP is just gonna be what it is.
It'd be like us saying we're doing 1.95.
Yeah, but we're not.
And then all of a sudden, when everybody gets their taxes, they're angry because they have the extra 3.78%.
Where we're not doing that, we're just bringing it
Yeah.
Well,
in. It is what it is.
it's transparency at its best, and at least everybody understands where everything's coming from, and you're not,
Mhm.
you're ripping the Band-Aid off now. Yes, people are gonna still be upset, but at least you know where everything came from.
Mhm.
I do like your idea though, of including something going forward on a best case scenario for that, because that will hedge our bet with that.
Nobody would have guessed 26%.
Yeah, you know, and going
No.
forward, you're not gonna see that kind of stuff, so I think that would be.
Yeah, just a small amount, to at
Yeah.
least take small bites.
Yeah, because, you know, when you talk about 60K in reserve, well, you could build that in through a small increase.
Absolutely.
And then you don't have to take from your reserves
Yeah.
if you so decide.
Yeah, and the reserves, I just wanna make it clear that the reserves are set there because you get a base rate that you're charged, and then it's based on then you get a reconciliation 2 years later, for calls for service. So you set up that reserve because if you have some murders or some big events in your municipality, your reconciliation is going to be large when that comes through for that 1 year, and then it might drop back off because the next year you might not but it's 2 years behind.
Yeah.
So that's why you're setting up those reserves, is because those one-time things make your budget go like that.
So we have some things, sorry, go ahead.
So that's why they've been set up like that, because we have had some big items happen in this municipality or have come over into our boundaries, so,
We may not have
um,
gotten those yet, right?
we might have some of those still come forward.
Investigation.
So that's the depressing one of the
Yeah.
budget, but we also want to really emphasize it too, as well as that that's where the bulk of this is coming from too as well, and that as much as that we'd like to have control over that or have some say over it, we absolutely don't. So I think that's one of those things that we're gonna always reiterate. Thank you for that. Let's move on to something less depressing.
No, I just, so when you talk about 65K in reserve, what sort of percentages are we talking about if you moved over 20,000 and stuff like not the entire amount?
So 20,000 would be about 0.6% increase next year on us, in relation to that.
So I just want to get the numbers in my head.
Yeah, because we're not passing the budget tonight,
No,
so
no.
it's definitely one that we can, come back to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good.
Yep, yep.
So protection and bylaw, nothing. Questions? Okay,
Questions?
Okay.
this is the big one. Public Works. Okay, so we have a number of projects still on the go for next year, so we have been provided our OSIF, our Ontario Community Infrastructure Funding, that will be getting the 100,000 again in 2025, which is used towards road projects. The other Public Works revenue, you'll see that it's substantially higher, and it's because it's including 286,000 from Beckwith. If we move forward with the McLaughlin Road, that's based on an estimate for the completion of that section of the roadway. Transfer from reserves, our excavator has required some work and will be requiring some additional work. I think it's been pushed back 3 years for replacement, to try and again, just alleviate some of the other equipment that is needed to be done. McGuire Road will be completed next year, with all the work that needs to be done. We have the tenders, it just has to go out for pricing. 20,000 for the sealing of the salt shed, that didn't get done this year because we had a really mild winter and it's still very half full. So we weren't gonna take it out to do that. Micro surfacing, so 2.5 kilometers of code, so we did code, it'll be 2 years ago. 2022. So to get a micro on it, just to make sure that everything's good at that 3-year mark, so to extend the life and be proactive instead of reactive on the new roads that we're doing. 20,000 for Pinery, that's still ongoing, we're still working with legal. The lawnmower that council has already approved. And 24,000 for a second calcium application that we've discussed moving forward. So those are the projects that have been brought forward in relation to Public Works, keeping in mind, like I said earlier, that if McLaughlin is not going to be completed this year, we're going to pivot very quickly to Ferguson Tellock and get that done, because it is right up there on the list of roads to be completed.
Would that be in the anticipation of, then the following year, then McLaughlin, like it's
Yeah.
just more kind of doing some swapping around to try to get until we get that sort of agreement with.
Yeah, so my recommendation to council will still be to go ahead and get these documents prepared and ready. To go for, because even if McLaughlin goes ahead next year, let's have Ferguson Tetlock ready so that we can go to tender really early again and get the competitive pricing that we've seen. What you're going to see, with the new public works manager, is that we're gonna try and be kind of a year ahead. So if we know for 2026, what roads are coming up, we're gonna get the tender documents ready. So January is a quick turnaround to get good pricing. So that we're always prepared and we're always ahead of the game. That is the plan. We want to be proactive, not reactive. So wages, again, you're seeing a reduction, even though there's COLA and increases. So it's the change in the public works manager position, with the scoring changing. but that has been offset into consulting fees, and training for the new public works manager. For that position. Furnace oil, all of those costs, we left them in the budget, although we don't have a building, and won't have a building until potentially the fall. We thought it was important to keep it there because if we cut it this year, we're just gonna have to find money next year to put it in. So at least if we have a surplus, we can set it aside and potentially, if there's an increase, offset it 50% at a time with what was saved in 2025. We can cut it, but we're just gonna be delaying it until the next year. So we left it in there because we are gonna have some costs when it's completed, for that. The equipment, to be honest, at this point in time, everything's in good working condition and everything, so we've just left the numbers where they were. This is really just kind of an overall budget type of thing that we try to keep everything under the 118. But something could come up with one of the pieces and it's more than the other. But right at this point in time, things are, looking good and moving. No changes for fuel at this time. It's been pretty consistent now, fuel in relation to that. And. Sorry, five of it is not showing blank sheets.
Yeah. Like, well,
Yeah, okay, so, everything else we've kind of remained, we increased the calcium dust control just based on, our trial of the second applications. The salt supply, again, we locked in the pricing, stone dust. We left it the same, it was a slight increase, but we still had a substantial amount of inventory from the previous year. And, overall, Public Works has been doing a good job. This year, there's gonna be some changes next year with the transition of a public works manager and those types of things. I don't think we plan on letting too much not continue. We're a pretty tight-knit team here. We wanna make sure everything keeps moving and keeps going. So. Any questions on Public Works?
Big part of the budget.
Big part of our budget, I mean, the small team, I mean, the whole staffing is a small team, really, but I mean, again, the spread out of all those roads that, you know. If you had a truck for every road and personnel and everyone, then, you know, we'd have higher budgets like some of those, well, staffing and other those others, but we're doing extremely well to get the roads covered that we need to get covered in the timelines that are legislated by the approving costs. We're doing excellent.
I do like the extra, like the calcium dust control, these trials too as well, because I think once again, it's, yes, could we cut that and save a smidgen? We probably could, but this is another one of those things where, you know, we've heard it from the public too as well, this is what they're looking for, so like for that smidgen more, it's something that is, that, you know, that might end up being a benefit to as well, so once again, it's trying to, I say, almost increase that service, but I think that's a great move too as well. The excavator, like, do you think that would be something we would keep the old one, or is it like basically putting that in for surplus after the end of it?
Yeah, no, we would surplus it.
Surplus, yeah.
We do plan on going probably through the LAS procurement though, because there's substantial savings, in that type of equipment. So, we'll bring a report to council.
100%.
My intent though but I don't wanna promise you anything, it's just that there's other application processes that we can also take on, that will allow us to really hit those heavier traffic roads. So there may be 3 additional, but that's in price.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you key it right on, even with the new public works and we're kind of moving forward, we're making sure we're maintaining the service, we're not going back on anything, we're gonna continue it. I think that's I think that's huge, that once again, a tight knit team, which is fantastic, because it just shows that we're able to keep moving forward. So that's it's right in line, so it's great.
Yeah, it just, because that's what we heard from a lot of the ratepayers, that they don't want us to step back in road maintenance, dust control. They don't want that. So I think that part of the budget sets in.
Yeah, perfect.
That's it? Okay.
I think a big one, yeah.
Okay, so streetlights, nothing really for this year, unless council has anything. Sorry, this is so small now. You guys have
We're not
anything?
adding any streetlights, and we just have to maintain the ones we got, that's really.
Yeah, we have the odd one fail here and there and all those things, but, we address them as they come through.
And they're all LED now.
All of them are LED, but we have about 4 different models, and some models are better than the other models, so
We're getting, that's a, was gonna get
we're
something.
switching them over to the better model as the ones that we got on a reduced price from Hydro fail. We're starting to replace them with the better models.
So once again, making the
Yeah.
most cost effective way of doing it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Wonderful.
Airport, nothing at this time. We're still in discussions and, a report will probably come back to council in relation to this as well.
Sounds good. Any questions from council? Seeing zero. Garbage and recycling.
Yeah, so waste management is really just the change that has already come to council in relation to our contract. The actual collection contract, we feel like the 150 is still suffice based on what we got for an extension for 5 years. It was the cost and the disposal that was gonna go up. We're adjusting it just based on average tonnage over the last several years. So again, if it's higher, we could be a little more. If it's lower, we could be a little less. It's really just based off average tonnage. What we've seen, and I know that we did discuss with council about adding a large item drop off days back. With the current construction, we just have nowhere to set it up in 2025, so we didn't include it. But you do see in the budget that our revenues offset our special pickup day, and I think more and more people are starting to use it, as it becomes more of a normal, service that we provide.
That's great. Any questions from council? I think that's, we knew that the large item pickup would take a little while to kind of get
Yeah.
built up a little bit and kind of bought into, which, you know, we're kind of late to the party as far as that goes, but it was, as far as everybody else doing it. So I think that's really good that we're going to see a bit of an offset there. So that's great.
So social services, we have the cemetery donations. We do not want to take on more cemeteries. So the cemeteries who still look after themselves, what this council has been doing is that on an annual basis, we've been increasing slightly the donation to them to continue to maintain that cemetery. So it doesn't get handed over to us. So again, we're recommending to council, that we give a small increase again, $200 each towards those costs for them. The donations, as far as the community grant donations, it closes at the end of the month. I think we already have 4 applications in, so that will come to council once it closes, similar to previous years.
Any questions on that? See none?
Recreation, so this item, we have, similar to last year, 25,000 out of our reserve. We put 50 into our recreation reserve. We're pulling 25 of that back out for the Smith Falls Recreation Agreement, which ends in 2026. 35,000 of parkland fees, to continue with the walking trails and boardwalks and things like that over at the 22 acres. Now, with the great big pile of stone, if anybody's noticed it, they came out of our hole out here. Some of the boardwalks might not be required, so we're looking at alternative, again, solutions to use something we've already paid to take out of our ground, and bring it back. So some of the wet areas, as opposed to purchasing wood and doing boardwalks, we might actually put some geotech down, use some of that big stone, and then do like a crusher stone over top. So it'll be more accessible, number one, and it's just gonna cost us to truck it. So we're trying to be even more efficient in that, sense of the terms as well. So we may not need the 35,000, that might be able to be kept for further improvements at the 22 acres for other items. The school is working on real world learning and potentially doing storyboards and things, a history board for the entrance and things like that. So we're putting the 35 there. But again, reports will come to council on what we're doing with that as we progress through there. And we didn't use all the funds even from this year, so there'll still be more than 35,000. Other than that, so the recreation committee has, last year they asked for 10, this year they're asking for 7,500 because they've been starting to see substantial surpluses in, with what they're holding and hosting. So it's a reduction. For the seniors programming, we're asking, it was 5, now we're going to 10. That has been a big uptick in Montague. There's been a lot of positive feedback in relation to that. We would like it to continue and move forward with that, but we do realize that in economic times, sometimes those things don't move forward, but we did include it because we feel like it is important in these economic times because we're offering trips at reduced cost, obviously, because we've also been successful in the application for the grants the last 2 years, and those types of things. But I think it's been pretty successful, and it's created some great community partnerships. So we're asking for that to continue on in 2025. And that is the main of this budget.
Any questions as far as council goes?
No.
I think,
Great work from the MRCC. I mean, functions they've been putting out have certainly had great interest from the community, and that's been fabulous.
and like, yeah, and 100%, and then with the senior side of it too as well, like, I mean, it has been a huge success and it's been great, I think, for the community, the seniors in our community, and it's really $10,000 is a small, like, another small sliver for what, the great times and great activities have been for that, so it's been a very positive thing, so.
Great to
Yeah.
keep the seniors active and involved.
We have so many plans for next year already.
And like, I mean, the grant's great, and like, but so many plans, and we're talking about using spending $10,000 for the so many plans, and
Yeah.
that's. Great bang for the buck, exactly, well said. That's, yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so the next one is the libraries. So this is one of the items that we didn't include the asks into the budget. They came in after the original draft went out. We didn't include it into number 2. I think this is one of those items we did kind of discuss last year about potentially changing and or looking at. Smith Falls has asked several times for us to open the agreement from 84. They are requesting or kind of saying like we should be paying probably $50,000 to $60,000 for a share for the library. But the bylaws and the agreements for the costing, just so everybody knows, it does say that Smith Falls gets 70% of our provincial library grant that I apply for every year. And that Merrickville gets 30% of that fund that we receive. And then after that, both agreements state the municipality also agrees to annually levy on its assessment a sum for library support in keeping with its economic base and low population. So it doesn't actually state an amount. So it's a really difficult agreement when there's no amount stated there, because the economic state right now with a big increase is not $25,000 or $50,000 potentially. So this is one that I think council should just have a discussion on in relation to this, because we're getting asked to open these agreements. Merrickville hasn't asked to open the agreement. Smith Falls has asked to open the agreement. So I think this one is, I'm kind of looking to council to say what direction.
I'll open up the council for.
So along with the library agreement type thing and usage, if I compare it to like recreation, that's it. So what's our usage like at the Smith Falls Library?
So I reached out, so they have 2 kind of definitions. Is that one is active users, which can be anybody who has taken 1 article in the last 2 years. But their cards expire every year. So the numbers from January until October, I was advised, was 100. I don't know, like, I don't know how many times they used their card, but there's been 100 cards this year
So
to the date that I asked.
so based on those numbers, right now, we're paying $250 per card holder. At the $25,000.
Yeah.
We just buy them books? Sorry, I am joking, but that's what I'm saying is, it would be, their non-local fee is $55 a unit. So I would much rather just pay them. We'll pay them, we'll let them go get their cards and we'll reimburse, it'd be a lot cheaper.
Or do you put into the budget, say for example, 100 users at the $55 and drop it from our budgeted amount to that to reflect the true usage?
I like that, so we'll offer them $5,500 a year going forward, and if the numbers ever go up, we could always revise that number. Which just still means we're paying out of local fee instead of a local fee, because local fee is, free.
Well, free for at that value.
You're free at
Yeah.
$25,000.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's unfortunate, I mean, there are some great benefits to a library. But in the economic times that we're in, where we're focusing on our core services, I think we have to be
And they're,
responsible to the residents and say, we've looked to see what usage is there and we're trying our best to keep the budget as best we can and as you say, I mean, if something happens that usage increases, then we'll definitely address that as well, but
and as far as I know, Merrickville's a little more active with the community than Smith Falls currently has been.
I've noticed stuff from the school with the library posted, because I follow the school for social media, but.
So. If I may, so I think this council is about transparency though and feedback, so we're not passing budget this evening. I would recommend that we maybe put out to the public saying, is this a service that we want to continue for this percentage? Or is there more interest in saying we'll refund or reimburse? And that would count fee, right? Like, I think, and it's entirely up to council. I just feel like you guys like having feedback in relation to services that you provide.
And I would like to see what the community would like to say about offering the $5,500 to Smith Falls. As opposed to the $25,000, which would work out to a definite savings. That we put towards something that will benefit local community. I don't know,
Plus another 5,000.
well, no, because that's their ask, they're wanting 30,000 for so $300 per user per year.
Keeping in mind with the 100, they can't verify if that's maybe one person in a family has a card and they're pulling it out for all different people. Or maybe all 4 in one family have a card. So we're not provided that, but
Cause like I know when I was in Ottawa and I signed up, they gave my mom a card, my sister a card, me a card, my dad a card. So we had 4 cards in one household. So that'd be, if we went by that, if they were doing that at Smith Falls, that'd be $1,200 for one family. Just if we go to $30,000. So I just think it's definitely expensive. I don't think the number's fair considering the amount of usage or the amount of benefit that we're really getting from that when we already have another library, which is substantially cheaper and a little more active within our own community.
Do we have the numbers from the Merrickville Library of how many?
Merrickville says that about 10% of their users are from Montague. Keeping in mind that Merrickville's total budget is only like 140,000. Where I think Smith Falls is 800,000 for their budget. Yeah, their 2023 budget for Merrickville was 143, of which we gave $8,900 and Merrickville gave 99,000. The rest was all grants and funding that they, user fees, things like that. In relation to those kind of things. So they say that it's 10%. And in the document that Mary Kate had provided, I think they had 1,600 active users, but again, it could be 4 or 5 people too. A house, like if the whole household has, like the kids want a card, you know? In relation to,
So, and so that there's more users that go to Merrickville?
if you just take the 10%,
You just
it'd be
take
160.
10%. Say in Merrickville. then it is.
Potentially.
Potentially, yeah. It's tricky to, yeah.
It's
But
not completely accurate data.
Because they're not exactly giving us a list and saying, here's your list
Yeah.
for your
they
municipality.
have our addresses. I mean, I know I just renewed my son's, like, we went in there, a week ago and we had to redo it because it expires every year and we had to, once again, show this is the address for where we live and blah, 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 blah. So I mean, it's it should have the accurate data because I take that information.
I think there's a little bit of a reluctance to give us the exact data just because for this type of purpose, you're likely to reduce funding if the numbers don't make sense, but due to the circumstances, due to the cost of everything, the numbers right now don't make sense. And we cannot justify for 100 users. And again, that's the number they're giving us, so again, that could be beefed up. But let's go with that being the gospel truth. At 100 users, if we went up to the 30,000, that's $300 per user.
So if we went the other way though, and we went to saying, we're just gonna pay back the users of $55, like, we could do that and our users would still have access to the library if we.
Oh, I don't know. Smith Falls may say no, user fee is now $300.
It might change the user. fee
Yeah.
If we.
Yeah, just the current non-resident is 55,
That's what it is right now.
but it doesn't mean that they won't change.
Because I've
it.
heard other municipalities, like Government Thumbs, because I remember I had a resident tell me that, because he came to me and said, and he goes, why can't I use the library? I'm like, well, dude, you're not allowed to use your Government Thumbs, but that's fine, but probably because they pay into PERT, that's why. But he said, I could not get anything from the library, so I don't know if they did not, and once again, this is just an interaction, so I don't know if it was like if he asked if he could pay an extra fee or not, and they just said, no, well, your Government Thumbs, you have to go to PERT. So the biggest thing we wouldn't wanna cut off the users, I guess that would be the other question, if they change the fee.
Well, right.
But when they advertise on their websites that there is a non-resident fee,
And we should be able to
then they
okay
should
with
be
that.
able to buy it on their own. By saying that you have to go to, in this situation, my interpretation would be that if you wanted it free, you would have to go to PERT.
Which could be-
But if you wanted to pay that non-resident fee, then you could access theirs, because I mean.
Because it's a business and I don't think they could blacklist us unless they want blacklist everyone.
Why can't they come up with a number when everything's on computers, you know? Of who's using it and what's going on? Like when you go in and sign up and you sign yourself and 4 kids, it should be in the computer that there's 5 people there.
Yeah, so they're saying it's 100,
You know,
but what they're saying though is that the parent might get the card, but they're changing books out for the kid. Which I thought it was a family card anyways.
No, it's an individual card.
So that's what they're saying is that the parent might be taking it out, but it's for the kid.
So John, how many in your household have one?
You're gonna ask that question, yeah, so obviously, unfortunately, I do not have one, but my wife and my daughter and my son, all 3 have their own, and like I said, we just renewed my son's and.
So there's $900. I'm just
No,
saying based on the new numbers they want us to pay. And again, that's just going with the 100 that we're going with. It's an astronomical fee for the ratepayers to pay for this type of service.
So I think I agree with Ali saying, let's put it
out there.
out to the residents and let them get back to us, and then we can go further from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's valid.
You have time.
Discussion. Yeah, we have time, and so let's get some feedback and on that, because it is a big one, because I mean, there's a lot of. Feelings towards libraries, and also there's a lot of great things that they do, they run programs, once again, the programming side of it too as well, are Montague residents getting that the usage of that, or is it really just small people that are getting their 13 nights and they're all their positive program that they're doing to as well? Okay. Any other discussion on that? Does that make all good for others, as far as directions out of it? Okay, perfect.
Planning and building. So again, most of these changes have come before council previously in reports. So we've increased the building permit revenue just based off of changes in the fees, and we do anticipate looking at those and bringing them back again in 2025. Planning, same thing, changes happened in 2024, so there's been an increase in some of the revenue there. We're using building reserves, which that is, as per the Building Code Act, we have to do if we have a surplus in any of the building. Last year, it was in the septic side, which is still part 8 of the building code. So we're using that training for those reserves for the training of our new full-time inspector to get towards the CDO designation and also to update our zoning and OP. So, that's great. Those, they have to be used for those type of things. We can't just throw them at the wall. So, again, the wage change is based on going from a part-time to a full-time, sooner than we anticipated, but very happy for Mr. Hunter. Increase in training for that succession plan that we were hoping to have in place, and we had started, which is good, and the courses were already started. We've allowed for a mileage rate still, even though, the new individual will be using a municipal vehicle, but in the event that there's not one available, he may still have to use one personal, so that's staying there. And, we've kept its septic inspector remuneration, but really it's gonna be CDO. It's Ms. Gallipo's, wages still for that. And, planning, really nothing. She was as easy as the fire chief. Just some small changes on wages and those types of things, and, the consultant fees to update the zoning and OP, with the county update, so. Which are all knowns to council.
Well, like all of our departments are well-oiled department. It's fantastic. So any questions from council as far as that goes?
Congrats to our retiring CBO.
Congrats to our new.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a, you know, it's obviously sad to see that the change there is with Mr. Hunter going, because he's been here for, I think he's the longest serving
21 plus years.
person we have, so it's but Mr. Hamel is gonna do an exceptional job for the decades to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fortunate that we were being proactive in succession planning.
Yeah.
Just have to go to the market. We'd be paying a lot more.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate.
Yeah, it was great that we were, again, proactive, trying not to be reactive. We're a little reactive now because it was sooner than we thought, but we were proactive and starting the process. Yeah, so it's good.
Just the commitment though from our own staff. Saying that, you know, I'm in one department and looking to my future and how is it gonna benefit the municipality as well.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous because every time you lose a body, the amount of time it takes to retrain people to come back, you know, like, doesn't matter what experience they've got, it's still, there is training involved. So we're lucky, we're very fortunate.
Very, yeah. And council obviously has been very proactive in that sense of doing succession planning, so it's been great. So drainage, the 4 drain was completed in 2024, all of the bills went out, and have all been paid,
All of them paid?
yes. They're added to tax rolls after a certain amount of time. But we did provide a letter stating, you know, if you need an extension, those kind of things, that's interest-free for a bit, but, everything has been addressed. So that won't be on next year's budget, and our drainage superintendent, so it is up over the 11,000 this year, but that's based off the 4 drain work that individual did. We get a portion of a grant back, at the end of the year for that. And moving forward, the average has been 10,000 or less per year based on, we don't have a lot of municipal drains, in the municipality. We may need to reach out to them next year, just discussions with the the OFSC, the Snowmobile Club, because the change on the Carroll area, they want to do a culvert very close to our municipal drain, the Ford one that just got done. So we're gonna make sure that everything is kosher there. But yeah, nothing, again, expected.
Any question on that? You see none?
And that's your draft 2025 budget.
Well, I mean, it's well laid out, it's got exactly what we need. It doesn't have fluff that we have to sit there and cut, it doesn't have, it's probably the most efficient and effective budget that anybody, and not be disrespectful around Lanark County, but probably in Lanark County, so I think that's a well done collaboration by everybody in the staff group, so any questions or comments from staff or from councils for?
Same with you. You've been doing a great job.
Almost all. I just honestly told everybody no. I'm just kidding.
We respect that.
Yeah.
No problem whatsoever. No one's good.
Yeah.
So it's and it's tough though, because I mean, like, there's obviously more that everybody wants to do, but recognizing the economic times too as well, and where we're going, I think it's where we're going with this. And still maintaining those services, and I think Councilor Johnson said it as well, we're hearing it, we don't want to go back on the road, we don't want to change on that, so I think I look forward to and to any feedback, and I'm sure all of council does and the staff do as well, we look forward to all of the feedback that we can get, and any questions or explanations that can be given for this budget too as well, because I think it's really well done, and see where the next stage goes, and we put out some of the other questions that we have too as well, so. Any final words, Ms. Allison?
No, so,
No, but yes.
yeah, so, no, but yes. So really the only line item that we're potentially gonna look at is use of some reserves from policing, is what I've heard, based on, hopefully we have some kind of response from the province prior to you guys passing this. We're gonna put a survey out in relation to libraries. Again, I think whenever you talk essential services vary based on everyone's perception.
Yes.
So, it's very difficult to hear from one person saying, well, that's not an essential service to me, I don't care about that. But that might be a complete essential service, or the only place for a recreational place for somebody to go at a low cost. So, I think it's important to go to the public on that. So those are really the only two indications. Am I missing anything? Councilor Johnson looks like he's pondering.
Very good thought.
Nope, I have to do some more pondering before
That's good, we have time for that, we have another draft, and I'm sure, any feedback or questions through the process too as well. We can go through that too as well, so.
So the recommendation is that I bring back, a second draft December 3rd. We don't have a lot of changes, so, I can bring it back December 3rd or wait until we get survey results and wait to see if we get a provincial. That potentially it's the second meeting in December, to give some additional time, because it's already the 5th. And I'm off the week before that.
I think with waiting on the police service stuff and things like that, that's really the major driver again.
Mhm.
Sorry to say that 18 times, but I just can't really stiff us like that. But,
You can't?
yeah, exactly. It's like the present feds haven't done something with us too. Yeah, I don't see why extending it would be a more efficient way to do
Just
business.
get the feedback too as well, right?
Yeah, and we want to be transparent with everyone, so for us to be able to make our decisions, we need to hear what they want to do.
And it could be a big change, it could be a change where people are like, whoa, what do you think, or maybe like, that makes sense, so. I'd say,
Mhm. Yeah, so we may get some really good feedback. I would ask that council go ahead, if there's nothing as far as the capital stuff, that we, similar to last year, that we go ahead and approve it. Tenders can start being ready,
Yeah.
so it's out early, we got really good pricing. And same as the COLA, if we're effectively comfortable with the 2%, again, we can change it in December, if need be, but that we kind of go ahead and move with that. The only recommendation would be that I'll present a second draft on December 17th.
17th. So I guess the only tattoo is the tendering is the McLaughlin Road. When will we get stuff back? I think we want to go to tender, but if we don't have where does that?
We're still gonna go to tender because we're gonna have everything ready. If they choose not to move forward, then we don't approve the costing.
But the tender, how do we flip that tender then to the other roads? I guess if that's the,
We're gonna put both of them, we got pricing.
okay, that's.
And potentially, so again, looking at alternative solutions and trying to save money and lock things in, so we potentially would put them both out, one being done in 2025, one for 2026. Because a lot of time with companies, they like to lock it in, knowing that they have two projects that they're locking in a year ahead for what's coming up. So we potentially are gonna look at that so that we know bang, bang, and we know for budget exactly what we're doing.
That's. Excellent.
Yeah.
Like, thanks, yeah, that's the,
Yeah.
that's.
So that was,
So we're locked in really at this point too, as well, like we're, those projects we're going forward. So yeah, as soon as that tendering comes up, like we want.
and Virgil Culvert, you really have no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be an emergency replacement or we do it.
Is there any foreseeable reason Beckwith will push it farther than the 2 years?
So I have no idea, like, I don't know,
Like, there are driving force on one of them.
yeah, sure.
So I'm just saying, like, to put it out, and then they say, well,
Couple
not do it.
couple options there too. So, sorry, I try to think like, so with Beckwith, so they have indicated that they didn't have any big road projects to put on this year because their big road project, they're kind of waiting for some of the construction to be completed on that road before they put a new road service on and it gets destroyed by construction traffic. So we would also have the ability that if they don't want to do it this year, but they're good for next year, we can always complete it, carry the costs. They sign an agreement, they pay us next year, but the work's already done.
Especially when it comes to COLAs, where do you get your data from?
So it is stats can all items.
All items.
It's based on our policy,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So we're supposed to go off of October and that's why I'm saying, like we only have August and September. And 2 is kind of in the middle of the 2 of them, but I have no idea what October is going to be. In relation to that.
Okay.
So so last year, I think it was 3 point something and we just went to 2.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually do the CPI as per the policy last year either. We went lower, again, trying to keep the impact on the ratepayers less.
Yeah, so that's sort of why I found the 2% odd, because it's lower than what I have seen. If you base it on what you've done through the summer.
So we did a pay review in 2023 though, where we kind of brought ourselves up.
Okay.
So that's why we went with a lesser amount last year. And then, we're kind of looking at, again, just maintaining that too.
Well,
Staff felt it was fair, like. We took less last year and. we're fine with
yeah,
that.
no, I just wondered exactly where, and at what point do you have a cutoff for your COLA?
And that was kind of the whole thing was that, so full is 9%.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think you have to be reasonable and I feel like staff is very reasonable in the sense that.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately up to council to make
Yeah.
that decision.
No, just the OPP weren't.
No, they're not as good.
Okay, that's good then. The last day at the OPP. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so-
OPP, Jerry.
So we're good with December 17th as opposed to the 3rd, just to allow us to get us some survey information back for council. Hopefully we have something from the province potentially. It may even be that they provide some kind of up funding or something to help, right? So,
Something I always hope.
yeah, so we'll wait then for that second, if that's all it's kind of. And then we can have the discussion about whether reserves for OPP or
Another year apart.
might not.
That's what. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for listening to me, sir.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. There's a valid point there too. as well.
There's
It's
lots
like
of coming.
where that pushback kind of comes, you know, it's exactly, it's raising, cutting taxes, you haven't been raising it.
Yeah.
Really just make sure that we got slammed with something that was.
Exactly, then, and now you want us to vote for you.
Man, that's a valid, there's a bit of a,
See some sort of a reduction.
We got
That's
two,
probably one of the most transparent ways that they can show they're doing something for ratepayers across the property, so.
instead of maybe the $200 back to every person, they could have said, well, maybe we'll cover your.
Yeah.
costs. It would have been smooth, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
awesome, okay, I gotta say this now. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson. Direction given by council regarding the first draft 2025 budget being presented in this report to be incorporated into the second draft 2025 budget to be presented December 17th, 2024 if needed. It is needed. That the council provide direction to notify the public that they intend to pass the 2025 budget at the public meeting of January 21st, 2025. And the council directs staff to proceed with the pricing for the capital projects with reports to come back. The council for final approval to ensure the township receives the most competitive pricing. And further, the council approved the COLA for 2025 effective January 1st, 2025 to be 2%. All in favor? And that's carried. That 21st, that's the day we come back from, is that right? Or not? From,
Is that our first meeting in
from,
January?
we're coming
Oh,
back from
back from
Roma,
Roma?
from Roma, right? So we're coming back from the, yeah.
The Tuesday,
The Tuesday,
yeah.
that's the way we come back, but we're coming back like in the afternoon.
We should be
We're
back
at lots of
at
time,
noon, I
as
think.
long as there's no train stallings or something like that.
Well,
If it is, I won't.
I was gonna say, we'll just all be.
We'll be zooming on the train together.
Yeah.
So hopefully it all works out. So before I shut this down for the night, do we have any burning questions from the audience?
More a compliment, actually, on the McGuire Road. Beautiful, driving on it. It's awesome. I can't get over that it didn't hit rock, but it's so flat. And I don't feel like near that pole, like I just don't feel confined if I'm gonna need another vehicle. It's great. Buses are gonna love it.
That's from our bus drivers, so that's a good endorsement right there, because that was one of the safety concerns for sure. So that's awesome. So it's a kudos to the staff and everything for doing that. That's amazing. So anything online or any questions from there? Nothing from the aliens up in the sky. That's good. Okay. So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Reeve Jennings. The committee of the whole meeting for November 5th, 2024 now be adjourned at 8:28 p.m. Thank you very much, folks, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks. All in favor, sorry.
No, I could sit here and run longer.